Alright, guys. So in the previous session, we actually decoded this business scenario or basically this business workflow or business process, and we tried to translate it into case type, and then it's divided into stages, and then divide the stages into process and other stuff, right? And it's of course steps as well, process and process steps. We'll continue to do that. But there is one important stuff that we need to do before we basically do anything else here. You might know that what object oriented and procedure oriented programming means. Object oriented means that we keep object in the center, and then we develop the features around that object, right? It's mostly relevant to the object. So Java, Java is object-oriented programming. Pega is built on Java, so it kind of inherits that feature. Anyway, Pega itself is a object-oriented development platform. So when it is object-oriented development platform, we need to find out objects out of a scenario, and then we need to develop our process and our data around those objects. If we talk about the process object here, so we do understand the credit card application itself is an object, right? Then that needs processing, that's okay. The next thing that I want you guys to basically think about is data object or model. So data model, identification of data model is pretty straightforward, but you got to be very careful about it. The first thing that you need to understand is you walk through the requirement and see what data are you dealing with. Obviously this is not very comprehensive example written here, right? It's very simple. I just have written some set of step. I haven't basically explained what type of data it should ideally be having in direct or indirect way. No, nothing is mentioned there, so we are going to just brainstorm on that and try to find out what data. So let's see. When you submit your application, the customer has to provide personal detail, might have to provide their address, customer has to provide, there's a credit card application, the PAN detail, the customer has to provide um, employment detail. I think that let's just keep that much. So if you look at this information, right, in the submit application, customer personal detail, employment detail, how are we going to basically deal with that, right? The one option is that you create first name, last name, PAN number, Aadhaar number, all those properties directly in the work class. The like we created yesterday for demo, right? We created the first name and last name. That was all going directly into the CC application class. Yeah, see, first name. But who will tell you whose first name and last name it is? And if you need to use the same customer first name, last name again, how would you reuse it? It's not good. You should never have scattered properties in the work class. The properties should be attached to an object. An object must be defined out of that. So a customer object must be defined, right? So there is one object, data object that we can identify is customer. And in the customer object, we might have to have title, first name, last name, email, phone, um, what else? I'll come back to that. The next that you see, address. Now, address is important, but address ideally should be a different object because it is a set of property. It's an object. So address will have house number, I mean street, city, state, in, country. Then employment detail. What will you have in the employment detail, guys? Well, you will be like current company. So company, designation, company designation, office address. Uh, Office address is kind of this only, right? That's okay. Let's keep it that way at the moment. Uh, and this will be address type. And then what else? Email, official, and phone number, official, right? Maybe annual salary and um, duration of employment, basically in month maybe. Okay, so this is pretty much what you have. Let's say that this is the data that you have. Now the data model in Pega are we discussed basically earlier in the early sessions, basically that the data models we create into a data class which can be related to the organization or it can be related to the application. Tell me guys, if we are doing the credit card, the customer data, is it going to be specific to the credit card management system application or it can be reused across the bank, the customer, the address? Anyone? This is a proper candidate that can be used across the organization, not necessarily being limited to just the credit card application. So ideally, this should be built under organization class B4B hyphen data, and there we will build customer. Similarly, address. Employment, you will probably not capture the employment detail in every application, so you could keep it for the application. So it will be CCMS data, just for the demo purpose as well. So I'll keep the employment in the application class, application level. So that's the data model, guys. This is how we approach. We approach what are the data needed, and then we define them. Okay. There are plenty of things to consider in data model. Concrete means are we going to store the data in the case or in the class itself, things like that that we will continue to discuss. But now, right, let's just set up this data model on Pega. How do we set up the data model on Pega? So go to the data types. There isn't anything on that arrow. Click here and say add data type. So new data type, we will add customer. Now customer, you need to click on advanced. So don't just go by default. It all adds in application layer. Okay, see application layer. We need data organization layer. So B4B data. This is the organization data class. Under the organization data class, we will create the customer. And since we are creating it for the organization, the rule set should also be of organization B4B. Submit that. Okay. Now we created the object, the customer data object. Now we need to add the properties to it. Okay. There's one important property for any customer record is basically CID that I forgot. Customer ID. Let's just put that there as well. Okay. So and address should also be attached to something, but we will talk about that. So let's create the field, okay, the properties. So this is actually a class created, okay. You can add the properties from here. This is called data designer. If you click on that, this data designer opens up. You can click on add field and add the field. Customer ID, I will keep it text, but you have other options as well. Advanced, you specify the length and everything. I will just submit it. So customer ID will be created. This is one thing. You can also open this class. Okay, this is the class before we data customer. So in App Explorer, you can open the class and data model. You will see one property that I just created, CID. You can right click on that and create another property as well from here too. So I'm just showing you this as well. So I'm creating one property, right click on the property and then create. Yeah, so create menu. So this is another way of creating rules. So I will create title. Title in this class, it should be in the same rule set. B4B credit management system. This is okay. So if I want to change it from text to something else, I can change it, but title is also going to be text, so I'm going to save it from here. So this is another way of creating properties. Let's go back to this. It will not show up here immediately. That's okay because of something called relevant record and all that, but don't worry, that property is available for you to use. Data model, CID. Let's continue to add other fields. So first name, single line, that's okay. Submit, add another last name. This is quick way by the way to create it. Submit, add another email. Email is also a type, so we will put that. And then phone number. Phone number is also a type. Maybe we need to add DOB and PAN.
Gender, we can add gender also, right?
And so DOB, this is state, PAN, this is text, and Gender. Now gender can be a pick list, and you can add your local choices. Okay, submit. So we have got these information now captured for the customer, right? Good. Let's close the customer. You guys will need to add address. So I will leave the address part to you. In the address, we need to know whose address it is. So just add CID and address ID as well, so that we know whose address it is later. Okay, it will be needed. Employment also we need to know the customer ID whose employment detail it is. So I'm going to next create the employment which is into the application data layer. Okay, so let's add that. Yeah, this is correct, and this is because it is in the application data layer, so it should be in the application rule set as well. So this is fine too. Let's just submit it. All right. So there we need to add CID for which customer's employment detail it is. Text is okay. Company designation. Office address should ideally be set of field, but right now I'm just going to create a text area. Okay, not the different field. We will later change it. So this should be text paragraph. This address, email, phone, annual salary. This is currency. Just explore all the types as well. Embedded data, data reference, case reference. Leave these four location. Otherwise, you can relate to those. Duration, employment duration actually. And this should be decimal. Submit. Okay, this is done. With this done, see, we have two classes now, customer and employment. So whenever we need to use customer data in our application, in our credit card application, we need to use the customer data, right? uh, so we will not be using these basically these first name and last name like this. Instead, we will be creating an object, basically another property. another property in the CC application called customer. And this property will not be scattered. So this is where basically the concept of page properties comes into the picture. So it's no longer these individual scalar properties like text or email or numeric or date. No, the group of property for single group is called page property in Pega. That is a page. Page means a set of properties, right? You need to define the page. You need to define the structure, how the page is going to be. So I'm defining customer as a page property, single page. It is going to be only one customer, not more than one customer that it will hold. So when I say this, that it is a single page, Pega will ask which type, what are going to be the properties on that page. That's where you need to define your data model. So you specify B4V data customer, press down arrow. So that means that this customer property that I'm creating in the work class is going to hold a customer data as defined in this class, right? So it is going to hold the customer object for my case. Now, wherever I need to use the customer first name, last name, all I'll have to do is define a page property basically in that class and leverage this class. I do not have to define first name, last name, and all those set of properties over and over. This is one type of reuse. So I'm going to define customer as a customer page. That's it. So instead of storing the data from the user in the scattered properties like first name and last name, I will be now storing the data into customer page. So when it is customer page, how will it be referenced in Pega? So in Pega, by the way, properties are referenced using something called dot operator. So you will say dot, that's how you refer properties. Okay, dot first customer. Customer is a page proper, but it is still a property, right? So dot customer dot first name. Earlier, when you did not have it, it would have been directly that first name. How, where we will refer it, we will come to know that shortly. Okay. All right. So this is the customer record. Now let me show you guys that case design. So here in the submit application, you configured view, you added the first name, last name. You see all the fields as well. But we created a few field like customer is also a kind of property, right? But that is not available here. Now it is available. When you create something from the backend, you need to go to action, that property, action tab, and click on mark as relevant. Then it will be available here on the screen. Okay. All right. So it will be available when you search it. Only if you mark it as relevant. So I mark customer as relevant. I'm going to remove these two properties from here now, and I'm going to add this customer field. Okay. Now I'm going to add the customer field. This is a data relationship. Is it going to be read only or auto? It is coming from the customer, but with view. We do not have any view how the customer data will be looking like, right? So we can create a new view or we can create a default view. View is how the user will see it. Let's create a view. So I got the customer view. Pega automatically brings up everything that was there, right? So CID is not optional, it's mandatory. So you call it required. First name required. I mean, I will not mark everything required at the moment. But this is it. Email, DOB, PAN, gender. If you want to add any other property, you can add. I added title as well. Title was actually not marked relevant, that's why it was not shown, but anyway we can add that later. So see, a customer view is getting created. Let's just have it, submit and save it. Now if I create a case, see, this is all customer information including the pick list, and I'm no longer using these scattered properties. Actually I should delete them now. So delete the properties. Okay, so we created a property, we created a class first, then we created an page property of that, and then we created a view from there as well in the application. So in the submit application you added one view, right, for the customer. Similarly add address and employment properties as well, and create the view just like how I created for the customer. Okay, this is an assignment for you guys right now to be done. I have already defined two properties, two classes, customer and employment. Address has to be defined by you guys, and then I have actually added only one field at the moment, customer. You need to add the address and employment along with the customer as well. Do you guys think you can do it? Probably yes. So that this is where we will conclude this session. This session basically talked about how do we extract the data model from the requirement, how do we define it, where do we define it, and how then we leverage that data model in the case to create page or page list properties, and then how do we leverage that page property to capture the data in the case. And that's where we will conclude this session.